This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Top of the hour brought to you by Upside. Download the free Upside app. Earn real cash back every time you fill up. Use promo code SPORTS for 25 cents back per gallon on your first tank. Jonathan Von Tobel here at the desk. Ben Stevens out in California. We have a lot to get to. It is a big Major League Baseball card. We'll get to that here momentarily. If you have anything you want to check in on the show with, whether or not I'm wrong about the show Cheers being terrible, it looks terrible. I've never seen a second of it. At me, JVT. At Ben Scott Stevens. I remember that now. Or anything you want to complain about at the show. Somebody earlier today tried to get me because, again, Justin, this clip of me talking about Houston to win the title is still up for some reason. So, we can take that down at any point if we would like. I'm just saying. But somebody asked me for an update, to which I responded, yeah, they lost. Like, what do you – yes, they lost. Yeah. There's your update, buddy. Sorry you weren't watching. You missed an interesting game. All right. Either way, we have a lot to get to, so let's do what we usually do, Justin, when we're talking some baseball. We got there. We eventually got there. All right. Major League Baseball today, a card that has some interesting angles and contests. Yankees and Giants is going to get us started off here in just over an hour and a half from now. Cam Schlittler is going to get the start for the New York Yankees. Robbie Ray will oppose him. Current numbers for this matchup between these two after a day off, but they opened the season on Wednesday either way. Yankees. About $1.34 favorite getting bet up here. 8.5 your total. Actually, some spots open 7.5. If you have anything here, because I do think the interesting aspect about this game then is going to be Schlittler as we work into his second year and in his year as a full-time starter. Pitched 73 innings last year, started 17 games for the Yankees. The strikeout stuff was good. The walk stuff, a little issue with command per 9 innings. Walked just over 3.8 batters. You're talking about a walk rate just over 10%. You want to cut that down, but we always talk about this. If you're a pitcher who can strike guys out at a very high rate, then you can balance out the high walk rate because you're not allowing the ball to get into play here. Robbie Ray, very similar in the fact that he can strike guys out, and yet the command can be an issue. I think that I would lean a little bit towards San Francisco, but that was the thought on Wednesday, and they got absolutely housed. Logan Webb didn't perform very well. Think a team that last year finished in the top 5 in walk rate, that would be San Francisco, can make Schlittler work a little bit here, maybe drive up the pitch count. But what do you make of this? Anything here? Is there a $1.36 favorite?
Can the Giants scratch across their first run of 2026? They were blanked by the Yankees on opening night on Wednesday. Interesting to see an early season total in San Francisco by the Bay at 8.5 and being bet up as we speak. Again, San Francisco scoreless in its debut this year against the New York Yankees. Cam Schlittler has some great stuff, as we saw on full display in his rookie campaign in the Bronx a year ago. We'll see how that blends here. And, of course, the Yanks are going to need Schlittler for a good portion of this opening start of the year. We're not going to see guys like Carlos Rodon in that lineup as well. And I am blanking on, why am I blanking on the Yankees ace who is out as well? Garrett Cole, goodness gracious. I was thinking maybe a little Cole Reagans, Garrett Cole. We're getting up to date with Major League Baseball. But they will need guys like Cam Schlittler to find his center and find that command early. I would kind of lean on the Giants. 8.5, it's being bet up that way. I think there could be a reason. And JBT, we saw yesterday a much more offensive opening day perhaps than the odds makers expected, or we see early, late in the month of March to start a Major League Baseball season.
Yeah, I would be curious to see. There was a thought heading into the year that maybe there might be a little bit of juicing of the baseball. So maybe. I mean, look, you're doing everything right. We're talking about, we got the pitch clocks in, the ABS is here. Now, of course, if you want to juice the baseball up, let's get this thing a little bit more exciting. All right, we all like baseball, but if we're going to start talking about juice baseballs, quick games, and umpires being embarrassed, you count me in for all 162 one of these games that I'll be watching here for the Angels, though, who again are on pace for an undefeated season. We will remind you. Luis Severino, let's talk about a division rival for the Angels and the Athletics on the road to open up the season. Tough start to the season if you look at the Athletics schedules, but it starts with the defending American League champions in the Toronto Blue Jays. Blue Jays, right now, you're looking at about $1.80 price tag Gausman's on the hill. Severino will oppose him. We talked a little bit quickly about this game with one Will Hill, who joined us in the first hour. It is worth pointing out, and he has told us with his own words, Luis Severino hated pitching in Sacramento last year and mentioned it a couple of times. Yep. When he was away from home, it was much better. 3.02 ERA over 80 2/3, a 3.87 fielding independent in 2025. So he is much more comfortable away from home. Gausman's great, but I get this sense that maybe the Blue Jays come into this thing, and this thing being the season, been maybe a little overvalued after a big run last year. You have a pitcher who's thrived on the road. You got a lineup behind him that's one of the better ones in Major League Baseball. You're going to give me above plus 150, especially if we're talking, I like to whittle these down to the first five. Again, go to the bullpens in the Cardinals-Rays game yesterday, absolute anarchy. I think that Severino might be worth looking at to have a good game here today against Toronto.
A 2-9 record in Sacramento last year with an ERA above 6, and JVT just laid out what he did away from Northern California throughout the 2025 campaign. And this is going to start in Toronto, up in the 6th. This is an A's team I am really excited to see this year because they have quite a young offensive core that has a ton of pop. And playing in West Sacramento and playing in that small minor league ballpark, are they going to continue to be an over team? Nick Kurtz leading the way, of course, as the American League Rookie of the Year. But guys like Larry Butler, Lawrence Butler, of course, providing pop really through the middle of that entire lineup for this Athletics team this season. So, again, with all of the runs that we saw yesterday, we saw the Brewers score 14. We saw the Nats post 10 in Wrigley on the Cubs. The Mets and the Pirates played to 18 runs yesterday in Citi Field with a pregame number of 6.5 for that total. Are we going to see that continue? If there was a spot I was looking at a game to the over, it would be in this one between Toronto and the Athletics because of that Athletics offensive firepower. And we know what the Blue Jays can do as the reigning American League pennant winners. So I lean to the over of 8.5 between the A's and the Jays today.
Okay. Next up, I'm sorry I'm laughing, guys. This is one of my things in Major League Baseball. Our Rockies and Marlins, we don't spend a ton of time here. The Rockies do seem like a team that is going to be very poor, obviously, given everything. Marlins are about $1.88 to a $2 favorite. Actually, no, sorry, I'm looking at first five. $1.96 in favor of the Marlins, plus 170 coming back on the Rockies. Sandy Alcantara gets the start here for the Miami Marlins, or as people on the East Coast would call him, Alcantara, which is not how you say his name. They're either very big favorites. This is what it's going to be with the Rockies every single time out. These prices are going to be exorbitant, and Freeland's going to give you something, at least I think at times. Last year, a 4.98 ERA, but a 4.18 fielding independent. You know that maybe there's some wiggle room to get a little bit better from a season ago, but is he going to get the offense here? Didn't have a ton of strong thoughts, just worth pointing out. Again, these are going to be some big prices on the Rockies almost every single time out. It'll be interesting to see over the course of their season whether they come out as profitable or not, considering what you'll be catching every day.
A 5.36 ERA for Alcantara last season, of course, as he tries to find his form, but did pitch a little bit better later in the year. The Rockies are going to be an underdog in of 162 regular season games? $1.30, maybe a little bit higher than that. Are they going to be able to be competitive or perhaps even cover run line numbers? Miami is a team, I think, JVT, a lot of people in the National League East finishing in that third spot last year, making a charge in the second half post All-Star break, that perhaps from a win total perspective in the mid-70s, or if the National League East with teams like the Braves, who always have very high expectations and odds entering a year, or if the Phillies trail off by any means, or the New York Mets can't find the chemistry altogether, despite the Phils and the Mets, of course, winning in their debuts yesterday, can the Marlins kind of maybe contend for a wild card spot? We'll see. A lot of that relies on the front line of their starting staff, including Alcantara kind of getting back to that National League Cy Young form. I think it will be interesting to follow the Rockies in the run line this year and just seeing how competitive they can be or how profitable they can be in terms of those betting odds.
All right, let's go to one more here really quickly, maybe if we have time for another one. But this one's going to be fun. Royals and Braves, Cole Reagans versus Chris Sale. You could make the argument it is potentially a World Series preview. Don't think many expect that to be the case. But Sale is about a $1.38 favorite, opened up at $1.45 in some spots, 7.5 the total, shaded to the under at minus 120. So we finally get a look at this Royals team that I'm very high on, albeit on the road. This lineup looks like it's going to be very good. Vinny Pasquantino coming in off of the World Baseball Classic, so we'll see how that looks here in this lineup. Obviously, Jack Caglione is here, but Bobby Wood Jr. We'll see exactly what this looks like in terms of the lineup today, though. The posted lineup doesn't have Caglione in today, so I'll double check to see where I'm at maybe I've missed some news. But either way, this is a Royals team that I'm pretty high on, and Sale has obviously been very, very good. I want to see if I bet this Royals team to win the American League. It's one of 2 American League futures that I have coming into this. This is going to sit back and watch, and I think Reagan's has enough stuff here to put him in position to win. But this is all going to be an experiment for me to see how good this Royals lineup can be tonight.
7.5 that total. This game, of course, in Truist Park in Atlanta. The under has the hefty juice. If this game was played at Kauffman, it would be a very different number, and that is where I think we see the offensive firepower for Kansas City develop through the year. KC had a great World Baseball Classic playing for Team Italia. Vinny Pasquantino and Jack Caglione had some pop. Michael Garcia was great in the World Baseball Classic, and of course, Bobby Witt Jr. was one of the bright spots for Team USA as well. I think it's interesting then to see this total at 7.5. The Braves are going to have some pitching woes, I think, early in this season with this pair of Spencers, Strider, and Schwellenbach on the IL to start this year. Can Atlanta overcome that? Of course, the Braves got off to a woeful start, a terrible start a season ago, despite having the second best price to win the National League pennant, second best price really of NL teams to contend for a World Series, only behind the LA Dodgers. Atlanta has those high expectations. Again, they're going to rely on Chris Sale early to deliver some wins with some of that pitching staff injured to start this season.
Caglione sitting against a lefty, by the way. That is the issue here today for not really an issue. He's going to platoon early, and we'll see if he can earn an everyday spot against lefties, if he can provide some really good numbers against them. All right. Remember, folks, our conversation about Major League Baseball today brought to you by Upside. Turn your cash purchases into real cash back with the free Upside app. Download Upside now. Use promo code SPORTS for 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill-up. Let's head back to the association. We got some news today about the draft lottery and more. Tom Byrne, host SiriusXM Mad Dog Radio and good NBA handicapper, is going to join us on the other side. Hey, let me get your attention real quick, podcast listeners. It's March, which means the madness is officially upon us, and the folks at VSiN have really gone crazy with this one. I'm being told that for just $29.99, you can get unlimited access to VSiN Pro through May 1st. I'm talking picks through the tournament, public betting data for every single game, plus sharp tools, projections, articles, and more, which means every day you wait is an opportunity missed. Just click the link in the description to get started. It's March, baby. All right, now back to the show.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
All right, back here on Money Moves. I apologize. I'm getting distracted by what may be fake news when it comes to the association. So let's persevere. We welcome in on the Progressive Guest Line, speaking of the NBA, SiriusXM Mad Dog Sports Radio host, and dare I say friend of the program, Tom Byrne, here with us today as we look ahead to the association. Tom, buddy, it's good to talk to you. Thank you. We can talk about all the big point spreads today, but I feel like, because we haven't really hit on it on this show, have you seen the news about the draft lottery options, and what do you make of what Adam Silver's trying to do, fighting against these tanking teams here in his league?
Yeah, I have. I haven't studied it yet. I'll do that before my show tonight, but I don't know if there's going to be an elixir for this issue. It's a league that incentivizes tanking. JVT, you and I have discussed this a million times. I mean, I was sitting through the worst tank job, or at least the attempted worst tank job in Philadelphia, and I actually supported it because it made sense. I didn't love it because, the team stunk, but I got it. And I think if Sam Hinkie had gotten more time, he would have turned it around more thoroughly than they evidently are going to, because it doesn't feel like they're going to end this little run with Embiid with a chip. But that's for another time. Sam Presti also undertook a major rebuild. If I'd be fair, I'd call it tank, right? But nobody cares because it's Oklahoma City. It's not a big market. They didn't have two of the greatest teams of all time, 67 and 83. So they let it go. And they also executed one of the greatest trades of all time. But getting back to the point, flattening the odds. I mean, the last thing you want to do now is incentivize tanking at the middle. Teams might prefer to miss out on being a lesser seed in the playoffs, knowing realistically they're not going to win these best of sevens 4 times in a row. And that would even be worse for the league. So Silver has to be careful. I'm glad he's trying to attack this. I just don't know what exactly to do.
Ben, before you jump in, I just want to, for our audience, maybe who has not seen it, there are 3 proposals potentially to end the tanking epidemic, if you will, according to Shams Charania. First one, 18 teams, bottom 10 that missed the play-in tournament, and the 8 that qualify for it, all will be part of the draft lottery. Bottom 10 teams will all have an equal 8% chance of moving up in the lottery. Remaining 20% of the odds will be split up among the 8 play-in teams in descending order from 11th through the 18th. And then the second, and I think this is really the only one other worth mentioning, 22 teams, bottom 10 to miss the play-in tournament, 8 qualify for it, and the 4 playoff teams that lose in the first round will all be included in the lottery and will be ranked according to their record across 2 seasons. And weighting their teams by their record across the prior 2 seasons, how the WNBA does it in the lottery system. There'd also be a win floor. So, for example, if they set it at 20, you only win 16, you would be considered as a team with 20 wins. Really convoluted process, but for our audience, at least, those are 2 of the 3 proposals that are being weighed, and they seem to be the 2 favorites. Ben, what do you got?
Yeah, the expansion of that draft lottery to 18, potentially 22, more financial investment power from Adam Silver and handing out some disciplines, all a bunch of things that we will see where it goes. But, Tom, we are seeing that represented on the odds board on this Friday night. 10 games around the association, 7 of those 10 feature at least a 9.5-point spread. It's the tail end of the season. We know the contenders. We know the teams battling for postseason positioning. We understand all of that. When you see those large numbers, though, on a nightly basis in the NBA, what's the approach that you have in general?
You know, it's interesting, guys. I got to be honest, and it leads to a greater conversation. Maybe it's for your hardwood handicappers because it might take longer. But I find it more frustrating than ever now to bet on the NBA. I actually like doing Major League Baseball. The problem is everybody has all the statistics. It's very difficult to beat an efficient market. Very, very difficult to beat Major League Baseball. At one point, 5 years ago, you can just model this properly with all the advanced metrics, EPM, Darko, whatever you had, and predict minutes properly. There are ways of doing it, and you can make money. And the biggest moneymaker was actually getting ahead of the injury news. There were some books, some in particular, that were very slow at moving the news. So if you had a chance to get it right away, somehow had it sent to your phone, you could make a lot of money that way. I feel like nowadays, whereas it used to be you could leverage the injury news to your advantage, now it's a complete pain in the ass. All day you got to live on your phone. You got to wait for the updates because these guys make such a difference in terms of, you know, their value to their particular teams. And then you got to wait the cluster injuries, what the cluster injuries mean for one team relative to what they mean for another team. So to answer your question, Ben, I'm almost at a point now where when it's a big spread, I kind of ignore it because a couple of things. You got to give a tax to tanking teams. You got to give a tack to the teams that just, you know, have cluster injuries. I just think, you know, at the end of the day, it's becoming more and more frustrating and maybe not even worth the squeeze because those teams are so horrific and it leads to awful basketball. Gone are the days where you could say, well, the NBA, every game is tied with 2 minutes left. That was never the case. But now I would say, well, it's NBA, every game is a 20-point margin with 2 minutes left.
You don't even participate in like the money line parlays of just fading these tanking teams and putting together these ridiculous 6-leg parlays. Come on, man, this is a fun time. It's every night.
Yeah, and, you know, I'm allergic to parlays. Some people are good at them. I have heard that, and I'm sure people are having success with them. I don't know. I can't get into that. There probably is some truth to the idea this year that you could get away with doing that, and by the end of the season, be on the right side. I'll stick away. And by the way, of course, I played a lot of these big underdogs. Don't get me wrong, you know. But at the end of the day, I just don't know, man. It used to be that, okay, this is a big spread. You want to be on the underdogs more than the favorites. Generally, that's true. But the NBA has changed a little bit in terms of how to attack the market. You know, betting the night before, for example, that used to be the way to go. You'd have a ton of CLV. Nowadays, you'd be kind of crazy to do that the night before.
Really quick, Ben, before you jump in, Tom, to your point about some of these big dogs, one you can make the case for, 2 ships passing in the night from an ATS standpoint. Chicago can't stop covering numbers for whatever reason, and OKC can't cover a number to save their lives, and yet here we are. We're looking at 18.5. It was 19.5 earlier today. Total's like 239.5, but I mean, here you go right here. The Bulls, they've been live every single night, and they're catching 18.5 tonight.
Yeah, I made it 16.5, so there is a little value there. Chicago's cluster injuries, a tanking tax. Together, that makes them less trustworthy. Big dog, messy roster, you know, chaos. This becomes more fragile than the raw edge suggests, though. But you're right about the Bulls. Now, not against Philadelphia. They gave up 122 points in 3 quarters. I mean, I thought Billy Donovan might take the North Carolina job on the spot after that pathetic performance. They didn't care to show up. Tyrese Maxey didn't even play. My God. So you got to be careful. Yeah, Oklahoma City seems to be cruising right now, and that's okay. And I've said this to you before, JVT and Ben. I don't know if you agree. I still think Oklahoma City is way better than anybody else. People are going nuts about the Spurs. Calm down a little bit. I like the Celtics, too. Oklahoma City's winning the NBA championship, period.
I would agree. There is some value, though, perhaps at least focusing on the Eastern Conference. And one of those spots, Tom, that does not feature an overly large spread is inside TD Garden tonight. The Celtics, a 4.5-point home favorite against the hottest team since the All-Star break in the Eastern Conference, the Hawks, who have won 15 of 17. What's your approach to the matchup between the C's and the Hawks tonight in Boston?
What is this, another one of those games you had to be on top of the number, you know? People trying to guess, well, should I lay 4.5? It might be up to 5.5 soon. Next thing you know, Jaylen Brown is ruled out. Derek White is going to play. If you just handicap traditionally, believe it or not, looking at Darko Predictive, EPM, looking at XRAPM, going by how many minutes they play, Derek White's actually worth more against the spread than Brown. Now, realistically, do I think he's more important? Maybe not. But I do think it's interesting when you do compare those two guys. But anyway, because of what's going on with the injuries right now, I would tend to stay away from this one. I would still lean Celtics. You know, Tatum looked pretty good last time out against Oklahoma City, needed that performance. He stunk in the prior 2 games. I love this Boston team. I've been on this team for a long time, well before Jason Tatum comes back. They're going to win the East. I think it's Oklahoma City and Boston. You know, Tatum, it's weird to see him not being the focal point down the stretch. I don't know if you guys watched that Thunder game. He was kind of in the corner watching. I don't know that Jaylen Brown passed the ball once. I'm not saying that's on purpose. I mean, Shireman was knocking down shots left and right, Peyton Pritchard. But bottom line is they have plenty of talent. They defend. They get after you. I can't trust Cleveland. You know, you can never trust that team as a collection. Then they bring in James Harden, enough said. And I like Harden more than most, but let's be fair. The Knicks will get bullied by the Pistons. I don't think the Pistons are ready yet. So, you know, I don't know if I'll be running to play them tonight, but I've been on this Boston team for some time.
Last 90 seconds with you, a little bit less. I did not hear one team, for some reason, maybe my earpiece went out. We've been having issues all day. No mention of maybe the best team in the Eastern Conference, the Charlotte Hornets, from you, Tom.
Well, it's funny you bring them up because I was looking. I figured let me take a look at my latest power ratings because I knew you guys would probably ask. Right now, I have Charlotte in the East behind only Boston and Cleveland. I have them rated in front of New York. Yep, I have them in front of Detroit. I have them plus 4.1, plus 3.97 for New York, plus 3.13 for Detroit, believe it or not. I am very high on these Hornets, and I love the idea that they've been so unpredictable. I thought you were dead with your win total that you were bragging about before the year. Mm-hmm. And then they turned it on in a way nobody could have predicted. I love having this something fresh, something new in the Eastern Conference, and I do think they're live.
Headline. 40-1 on Tom Byrne's third-rated team in the Eastern Conference to win that conference. Tom, we are up against it. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, buddy.
Yeah, good luck, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, so you thought we were dead. They never die, all right? You always try to catch that bug that's flying around. You can't get it. It's the Charlotte Hornets, buddy. All right, last 30 minutes, we come back. We got a full slate of NBA. We can hit on those, but college basketball is more important. Let's recap what we saw last night, but more importantly, let's talk about tonight.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Do have a little bit of breaking news that people want to be aware of. I'm sure Mitchell Paul will cover in this story as it develops, but Tiger Woods just in the headlines, playing in competitive golf for the first time in a while, involved in a rollover crash today on Jupiter Island, according to deputies out there. Condition right now unknown, currently investigating, and we will have details as the story develops, and I'm sure here at VSiN, the guys will keep you posted of that as it comes along. So we'll see what happens with Tiger, but involved in that accident, and we will have news as it comes out here at the Vegas Stats and Information Network. Ben Stevens is here, Jonathan Von Tobel. College hoops tonight. We've actually hit on a lot of the Elite Eight and a little bit of what happened, but haven't really really focused on the games that we're going to see this evening. So let's start there. As I keep saying, the game that I am the most interested in, because I don't really hear a ton of different opinions on this one. St. John's and Duke, Ben, 6.5 the number across the board. Some 7 starting to appear. There's one at the shop where I'm sitting at right now. Total's at 142 here, at 141.5 everywhere else. There's a little bit of buyback on the over, but let's start with the side first. Are you with everybody else who says that St. John's is the side?
I thought Northern Iowa was live to pull off the upset in the round of 64, so I have not been on the Johnny's train like many. In fact, JVT, the way I'm approaching this game, if you ask me for a bet, it would be Duke laying 6.5, or perhaps because I like the under, but a little bit sketched out by what the market is doing. DraftKings still showing 140 and a hook. A lot of that betting market kind of favoring the under as well. I'm approaching it from a St. John's team total perspective, because one of the reasons I think Duke is actually in an advantageous matchup is because of the Blue Devils defense, most efficient in the country on the defensive end of the floor. And a little bit of lack of belief, perhaps, in this St. John's team, namely in the backcourt, that has had its issue. You made the joke yesterday. Rick Pitino kind of joked, but it really wasn't. Mid-game against Kansas, as both teams were throwing up bricks all over the place, Kansas is begging us to shoot the three, and we are going to oblige, despite the fact it does not look like we can hit water from a boat. And St. John's has taken more threes, both against UNI and KU, than they took 2-point field goals in those games. And this is a team that does not shoot nearly 50% of their field goal tries from three in terms of that 3-point rate. 34.5% on Selection Sunday entering the big dance. That's not exactly St. John's offensive fluidity, and I think a lot of it is the struggle of the backcourt. They don't have that go-to guard that can win you a game against a really good defensive matchup or perhaps a one-on-one. So I think Duke wins this game. I would not be surprised to see John Shire and his club cover this number. And again, I like the under. You got a great number, under 142.5 earlier in the week. So I think I would approach it if I expect this game to trend toward the under and Duke's defense stifling a stagnant St. John's offense. I'd look at the Johnny's team total of 67 and a hook and lean to the under as well.
Might be a good number. We'll see, because if Circa's up to 142, maybe that's a sign that we're probably going to get some buyback here on the over potentially. Yeah. And we get back to that 142.5 that I've got. So we will see if that is going to be the case. But right now, total is going to be a watch here. Again, we'll reiterate, if you go to VSiN.com, we see the pro picks page, all those sort of things. You'll see me next to Duke. I do think that's the side, especially, if it starts to dwindle down, we'll see. But that was a contest play, and that was a contest strategy. My expectation was that majority of people were going to be on St. John's. That was the case. 5 of the 6 are on St. John's. I am the lone one on Duke. So we'll be pulling heavy for the Blue Devils later today. So we can all celebrate again, so we can all go to the cabana here at the Vegas Stats and Information Network. Everybody in the crew is invited, so I think everybody wants me to win. I think it's pretty simple. All right, Michigan State and UConn. Let's go here. 1.5-point spread in some spots, 2, the predominant number, 136.5. I will reiterate what we talked about earlier in the program. It seemed at every turn this year, the betting market was telling you that UConn was better than most thought. UConn, in terms of the results, told the betting market almost every single time, we are not as good as you think we are. And yet here we are again, opens pick, up to 2. I from a pure ATS standpoint and the way the market has rated this team, Ben, why would I not just look at Michigan State? The betting market has been wrong about UConn every step of the way this year.
No doubt about it. JVT, we said it with Will Hill. UConn is a bottom 10 high major cover team in the country. The other 9 teams that make up the bottom 10 around the high major programs did not mostly sniff the NCAA tournament. The only team that was really in consideration was Auburn. But the Huskies in the category of a team that pulled off a regular season upset against them to end out the year. Marquette, Creighton in the Big East, teams like Kansas State, Penn State, Oregon, who was dismal this season in the Big Ten. That is the category of which Connecticut is around in terms of that ATS number. And yet, JVT, we talked about this yesterday. If you asked me to bet this game, Ben, here's a $20 bill, put it on this game. It would be Michigan State money line. The betting market does not agree, especially on Circa. Looking at those VSiN Pro betting splits, 88% of the betting handle right now on Circa on UConn, which has moved this number from basically pick to now 2 in that spot in favor of the Huskies. These two teams mirror each other in terms of what they want to do, both slower, both top 15 in terms of defensive efficiency, both offensively, very good at moving the basketball. Michigan State led by Jeremy Fears Jr., who leads the country in assists per game this season. all of that is a very similar style between these two teams, head coached by Dan Hurley on one side for Connecticut and Tom Izzo on the other for Michigan State. Again, I think the Spartans are the money line play here. I don't love this spot, much like Nebraska and Iowa. I won't really have a bet on this game. The betting market, though, is telling you that Connecticut is the right side. I'm not entirely sure why the handle is so overwhelmingly in favor of UConn, but that's where it stands for DC tonight.
Yep. All right. Alabama and Michigan at 4:35 p.m. Pacific time, going through rotation order, hitting the Sweet 16 matchups that we will see this evening out in Chicago. 9.5 now, the number in favor of Michigan, total 173.5. Do you expect maybe some buyback on the Wolverines at some point to get this back to that 10.5 range today?
It is interesting to see that buyback already. This dipped to 8.5 the previous 2 days. It opened north of double digits in favor of the maize and blue. I jumped on Michigan laying 10.5 because I thought this might go the other way. Of course, market worked against me. Of course, a few updates here that are necessary. Everybody saw the news today that Aiden Holloway, according to the Tuscaloosa District Court, is allowed to travel out of state despite being arrested for a federal drug charge. Now, just because the judge ruled in his favor, which has also been the case for Alabama men's basketball there in the city of Tuscaloosa, the program itself saying Aiden Holloway is not traveling with the team tonight, so more than likely not playing in the United Center against the Wolverines. Holloway, the second leading scorer for Alabama all year long prior to the NCAA tournament. Its scoring is what the Crimson Tide do. This total of 172.5 on track right now to be the fifth highest ever over-under for an NCAA tournament game. Michigan is elite defensively. Alabama is not. But the reason this is north of 170 is both teams are incredibly fast. Michigan 22nd in terms of adjusted tempo. Alabama the fourth fastest team in college hoops. And Alabama shoots the three more frequently than anybody else. Nearly 54% of their field goal attempts this year from beyond that three-point line. They took 42 against Texas Tech, overwhelming by making 19 triples and winning that game by 25 points. Alabama is going to shoot the three against anybody. Michigan allows you to shoot the three because of how good they are on the interior defensively. Adai Mara, Perez Johnson Jr., Yaxel Lendeborg, just to highlight some of the length the Wolverines possess. I'm just not sure, JVT, that Alabama has enough defensively to slow down what Michigan wants to do. Will Hill mentioned it. Team total for the Wolverines, 91.5. I do think we see some pace. I do think we see some scoring, almost reminiscent of Arizona and Arkansas last night, despite feeling Arizona was the better side. Laying 7.5, comfortable with 8.5. That's how I feel about Michigan as a big favorite in this spot. I'm still sticking to my guns. I laid the 10.5 on Monday afternoon. I'd lay 9.5 here with Dusty May and his team.
Can't imagine getting popped for weed in 2026, huh? Couldn't be me. But hey, we'll see.
A lot of marijuana, JVT. A lot of marijuana.
Hey, man, I mean, we all know a guy. I know a guy. But he got a little weird. We had to move on. Tennessee and Iowa State, 3.5 or 4. Total of 139.5. Started showing up at the house, it was kind of weird. What do we make of this? We maybe have a little bit more on the other side, but the real question is if Jefferson's going to play here tonight, and we still don't know. That'll be a game-time decision.
Yeah, it will be a game-time decision. I'm not necessarily in love with the injury reports we have seen throughout the college basketball postseason. Although, another update from D.C., Caleb Foster, less than 3 weeks after fracturing his foot and following surgery, is expected to play for Duke, whatever that looks like in terms of minutes. If he starts, we'll see. But the starting point guard for the Blue Devils all year expected to be back. Does that give me optimism that Jefferson, after a nasty rolled ankle less than 3 minutes into the game against Tennessee State in their opener, is going to play? Of course, they are not correlated. Joshua Jefferson is key. He is Iowa State's best player. He is the Cyclones' leading rebounder. And when you are playing a Tennessee team that is the second best at crashing the offensive glass in college basketball this year, J.P. Estrella, Felix Okpara, Nate Ament, the very talented freshman, you need to be good there. Tennessee can be a little bit turnover prone, and we saw Iowa State turn Kentucky over 20 times. They are the fourth best team in the country in terms of defensive turnover rate. I mentioned to you, JVT, yesterday that I was going to look at this game, await Joshua Jefferson's status as we get later on this Friday inside the United Center, but would probably find my way back to the Cyclones. I have laid the 3.5 with Iowa State. Tennessee allows you to shoot the three. Iowa State is the 11th best three-point shooting team in the country, 38.7%. And after a very slow start against Kentucky, started to find their footing in the second half offensively. I just think Iowa State is the better team than the Vols in this spot. I laid the number.
Baseball season's here. VSiN Pro just made it a whole lot more profitable, folks. Major League Baseball AI player prop projections powered by Opta AI are giving you data-driven projections for both hitters and pitchers compared directly to the DraftKings line, so you know exactly where the value is. And every day we break it all down into the top value plays and strong plays. You don't have to do the heavy lifting. Get access with a VSiN Pro subscription at VSiN.com/MLB props. Wrap it up. Best bets and a little bit more before we get out and hand it off to Follow the Money.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
If you got a group chat full of hot takes, Cut was built for you. Cut is a social betting platform that lets you bet directly against your friends and other users on basically anything: sports, politics, pop culture, and even personal bets. Every bet fully customizable and pre-funded. No more chasing someone down when they lose. No flaking, no excuses, just results. And unlike traditional betting apps, Cut actually gives you cash back on every single bet you make, even against your friends. Now you can get a 15% deposit bonus on your first deposit when you use promo code VSiN. Head to cut.com, KUTT.com, or download in the App Store. Use promo code VSiN. Ben Stevens is here. He's been with us for the last 2 days. Big thanks to Ben, as Friday is, well, the end of the week, and we're not going to be here tomorrow. So we appreciate Ben's time. I will give him a better thank you at the end of the show. I want to point out that we do have some developing news. Tiger Woods, for those who hadn't seen it, was involved in a rollover crash in Florida. But according to golf.com and some other reports, sounds like there are no injuries in the accident. So again, just developing right now over the last couple of minutes. I'm sure Mitchell Paul will have more on this as it comes along, as will the Vegas Stats and Information Network as a whole. But sounds like no injuries at this point so far in the crash involving Tiger Woods. So with that, really quickly, because we were up against it, so you did lay, to clarify, Iowa State here against Tennessee, correct?
Yes. I led the 3.5 last night. Cyclones 4.5 in some spots, according to DraftKings, but I'm still on that 3.5 number. I like Iowa State in the matchup.
Iowa and Illinois. Let's hit the two Elite Eights before we get to our best bets for today. Illinois, 6.5 and 7 appearing, total 138.5 right now. So maybe a little bit of buy-in on the Iowa Hawkeyes. What is your initial thoughts here? We covered a little bit of Purdue and Arizona, but this one not so much. Illini with a big number against a Big Ten foe.
I think it's really hard to handicap this Hawkeyes team because what we saw through most of the regular season has not been the Iowa team that we have seen in the NCAA tournament, especially not the Hawks' final 2.5 weeks of the regular season, where they didn't really look like the quality of a tournament team. But that is the beauty of Ben McCollum. It is what he has done, leading the Hawkeyes to the Elite Eight for the first time since 1987. So if you're asking me right now, I think Iowa keeps this game within the number. I think it's decided by a few possessions. Of course, these two teams know each other incredibly well. It is our first all Big Ten Elite Eight matchup in a regional final since the year 2000. Conveniently, the last time this conference won a national championship in men's college basketball. I think Iowa stays within the number. JVT, we talked about it all yesterday for the Hawks. They brought the physicality to Florida. They beat the Gators at their own game. They were great on the interior, 19 of 27 in their 2-point field goals. They had more offensive rebounds than one of the best rebounding teams in the country in the reigning national champs. But we thought yesterday Iowa would have to shoot the three at a much higher clip than they had previously in the Big Dance. And in those final 2 weeks of the regular season discussed, they hit 13 triples last night. Bennett Sturtz started to find it. The freshman in Tate Sage, he had 4 threes and 19 points. They took advantage of Nebraska's weakness, especially on those weak side corner 3 balls that just continued to drop to keep them in the game, even when Nebraska got off to such a red hot start. I'm really trusting Ben McCollum to find the weakness of Illinois, which so far in the tournament has not been defensively. They have been outstanding against Penn, VCU, and of course, as we saw in full display in Houston against the Cougs last night. But that is where they have lacked through most of the year. Their height, their length really made life difficult in the regular season meeting against Iowa. Illinois is the tallest team on average in college basketball. But I thought the Gators were a massive mismatch for Iowa in that perspective on Sunday last week. I do think Iowa keeps this game close. I think Illinois advances to the Final Four. I think the Hawkeyes keep it within the number.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. 7.5 seemed a little strong, and most of that's gone. I think Fanatics still has a 7.5 out there if you want to go and grab it, but 6.5 seems to be the number that is starting to pop with Illinois. Purdue and Arizona, I mean, you and I hit on this quite a bit. We're both high on Arizona. I tend to lean a little bit toward the Wildcats' direction. We're starting to see maybe a juice 5.5 here, but I think that Arizona, it's one of these teams that in our contest every round, I found myself with that Arizona ticket, Ben, and I just kind of want to believe in this team. I think there is an undervalued nature of them, despite the fact that they are, of course, the favorite to win this thing, and the prices that they're laying, some of them just haven't been enough. I mean, they didn't cover against Utah State, but that was a push, depending on what number you got. The other two, they took care of business, relative ease.
Yeah, I laid the 11.5 early with Arizona, so winning by 12, I actually got that by the hook. But yes, to your point, JBT, they have looked sensational. And despite being strong favorites in every game, maybe outside of fins up against LIU, that probably wasn't enough. And even in the game against the Aggies and Jared Calhoun, that was never really a conversation about how competitive this game was going to be, but just, of course, some cover drama late there for Arizona. This is not a great matchup for Purdue. I was on the Boilers last night against Texas because the Longhorns were not great defensively. Purdue, courtesy of Trey Kaufman-Renn, and the game-winning tip-in goes over that team total of 77.5. I think it will be difficult for a Purdue team that is the most efficient offense we have ever seen in the history of the Ken Palm era that dates back to 1996-97 to find that same level of efficiency against a really good Cats defense and an Arizona team that plays much faster than Purdue does. I would lay the 6.5 with Arizona here. I've got national championship tickets on both of these teams with Purdue for the last 11 months at a 13-1 number that I never actually thought would materialize to even maybe see the Elite Eight the way the Boilermakers ended out the regular season. Just think Arizona is the better team. I think it's a matchup that is very advantageous for Arizona, as I did last night against Arkansas. I'd lay the number with the Wildcats tomorrow.
All right, best bets as we head into the weekend. You are our guest. You've done a tremendous job. It's been a fun couple of days. You have the floor. What do we got tonight?
Thank you. It has been an honor to be here. I appreciate filling in for Stormy, and I am glad that Money Moves continues to be.
Honor's a little strong, you know.
Honor.
Come on.
Well, humbled then, JVT.
Okay,
humbled. And appreciate you, Justin, everybody, for having me on. What?
It's a shot at me. It should be an honor to work with me. It's annoying, but go ahead. I continue to cut you off.
No. Absolutely. It's our first time meeting. I thought we had a good time, some good rapport, a very good time. So, best bets for tonight, Sweet 16 Thursday. We've talked about Duke and St. John's, much like JVT. I think the Blue Devils are actually the correct side. I would lean on the under. Market's moving a little bit too much. But if I think Duke is the correct side, and I don't think we see all that many points, because I don't really believe in the Johnny's offense against a really good Duke defense that is the most efficient in the country. I'm on the Red Storm team total to the under of 67.5 points. You can get that on DraftKings. Some pretty decent juice on the under, around minus 120, minus 125. Still don't mind it there. I've talked about how I was on Michigan early, north of double digits, laid 10.5. It was 8.5 yesterday, back up to 9 and a hook. The Wolverines' real issue is they turn the ball over like crazy. Alabama not known for their defensive prowess and don't really turn you over. Michigan can play at the pace. I trust Michigan's defense just slowing down Alabama, so all the looks from three are not crystal clean looks from three. I'd lay the number with the Maize and Blue at 10.5. I would obviously lay it here at 9.5 as well. And as I just shared, as we started this segment, Iowa State laying 3.5 yesterday, back to 3.5 on DraftKings, was 4.5 as we started this Friday on Money Moves. I don't think you're really missing any numbers. Maybe await the status confirmed of Joshua Jefferson by the time we get late night in Chicago on this Friday inside the United Center, still listed as a game time decision. I think Iowa State and their three-point ability that they put on full display against Kentucky and the ability, even without Jefferson, to maybe turn Tennessee over on that side of the floor is enough for them to win this game. And not one that I expect to be 10+, but maybe by a possession or two and cover as a 3.5-point favorite.
All right, and Ben yesterday going 2-0 in the bets that he gave us, so a very big kudos to Ben. Purdue team total over 77.5 and Arizona minus 7.5. See, we have the green check marks for you and everything, so we got to make sure that we get those up there. For me, yesterday, 2-1, all in college. Arizona minus 7.5, Texas plus 7, both get there. Nebraska minus 1.5 does not. We move on to today. First in the NBA, it looked like it was going to be a bad number, but it's exactly where the market came back to, and another one as well. But Cavaliers minus 4.5. This is going to be the Cleveland Cavaliers, not the Virginia Cavaliers, although I do like the logo. Pelicans plus 8.5 in the NBA as well. This is the one I was referring to. Got as high as 9.5. We're back down. Murphy not playing, but Pelicans, even though they're in a negative scheduling spot, second leg of a back-to-back 3-game in 4 nights. Young team that I think is going to be able to stay inside of this number against the Toronto squad that I don't get to that number personally here. And then the total, as we've talked about all week, this is one of the first ads on a Monday. St. John's and Duke under 142.5. Where this ultimately gets to is going to be pretty interesting. We're starting to see like 142 here at Circa starting to appear. 141.5 is the big number in the market right now, but do think that this is going going to be a pretty low-scoring and ugly affair, and very much need a Duke Blue Devils cover. We need it. Did we? I don't know if we used it for our contest. Did we use it for our contest? I don't think we did. I think we stayed away from it. So for the Money Moves Pride, we are in second place as a show. And, Ben, if we win this thing, you get to get in on the prize, which is absolutely nothing, actually. We're not winning anything at all. But we still get to brag as a show that we got it done. So we'll see if that's the case. And by the way, you've been here more than Stormy Buonantony has throughout this run. So you deserve as much credit as Stormy does when we look at this, if and when we win the title and pry it from the hands of VSiN Primetime. So we're pulling for it. We had a decent day yesterday, right? We're still in second place, 2-1 yesterday. So it's all you can think, just brick by brick, baby, brick by brick. Ben, we appreciate it. What's the night look like for you? You heading out right now? What are you doing?
Yeah, we got some friends that will meet up 4 p.m. on Pacific time out here on the West Coast to watch college basketball. That's awesome. Enjoy all of that. Be on Live Bet Saturday tomorrow with Dustin, Live Bet Sunday on Sunday with Femi. So we'll be having a good time. Wait, I thought if we won the contest, we got a cabana at Circus Swim.
No,
that's what I was coming in for.
That's the Circuit College Hoops Challenge. So, yes, that is a different one. That's the Invitational. This is the actual bracket challenge. There's a lot of different things.
Gotcha.
Not enough time to at least talk about the fact that I lack friends, so that sounds like fun, but maybe something I can have farther down the road. For Ben, for the crew, thank you very much. For everybody else, follow the money. Paulie back from the pizza convention, huh?